All right, well, thank you everyone for watching this online seminar today. Today's online seminar is Resources for Sustainable Schools, featuring Mike Cruse. Mike Cruse is a resource teacher with Arlington Public Schools in Arlington, Virginia, where he is connecting CTE teachers with sustainability initiatives to green their classrooms and curriculum, and supporting students learning about sustainability within their career fields. He has published articles on K-12 environmental education, sustainable curriculum resources, and workforce development for green roof careers. Mike is a Green Associate with the U.S. Green Building Council and a volunteer with USGBC's Energy Saving Competition in D.C. Public Schools. In addition, Mike will also be presenting Developing Sustainability in Your 21st Century CTE program at our Career Tech Vision Conference in New Orleans as a career cluster speaker. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, and feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Aaliyah. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you could join us today to talk a little bit more about resources for greening your CTE programs. As Aaliyah said, I currently work in Arlington Public Schools in Virginia, where I've been working with CTE teachers to build sustainability into the curriculum. And just to give you an example, so we started a composting project this past year, which is a collaboration between 4 of our CTE programs. So our engineering and computer-aided drafting, our building trades, which includes carpentry and electricity, our culinary arts, and our greenhouse intern program. And so for our composting project, we had the engineering and computer-aided drafting students design a compost bin prototype. And then the building trade students built that from the CAD designs, built the prototype that we used, and our culinary arts programs, students there collected food scraps that could be composted and shared those with our interns in the greenhouse, who then composted them and used the soil to grow herbs and vegetables that were then cycled back into our culinary arts program. So it was a great opportunity to really engage those CTE teachers and students in creating a sustainable system for our school. And I'm looking forward to another year and reaching more teachers and more students and collaborating in ways that we can build sustainability into our curriculum. So without further ado, I think we'll take a look at the agenda for today. If we could go to the next slide here. So I would first off like to talk a little bit more about ACTE's commitment to sustainability. Hopefully some of you have already read the statement, but in case you haven't, we're going to take a look at that. And then I'd like us to talk about some planning and curriculum resources. Those are resources that I've found helpful that I'd like to share, and certainly would like to say that these are just a few of a lot of resources that are out there. Next, maybe we can talk a little bit about internship programs. As I mentioned, in my experience in Arlington, our greenhouse interns were an integral part of our sustainability, our composting sustainability project. And so we're going to just touch a base a little bit on interns and how you might be able to use those to create sustainable systems in your schools and your CTE programs. Next, we'll talk briefly about facilities and the idea of using your building as a teaching tool. And then finally, we'd like to talk a little bit about some federal initiatives that can help support greening and sustainability in your schools, both for schools and for students, and then some professional development opportunities, great ways to explore a little bit more in depth about sustainability. All right, so moving on to ACTE's commitment to sustainability. So I'd like to just take a moment and read this slide to you. If you've already read it before, that's great. But for those of you who haven't, I'd like you to just take a minute and listen to me here. So ACTE believes that environmental sustainability is not only best practice, but a deep reflection of the values of the CTE community, the guarantee of a safe future for the planet, and a key component of its economic future. So some of you may recognize in that, if you've read anything about sustainability, the idea of, there's an image of a stool, a three-legged stool supported by three things, and that's people, planet, and profit. And ACTE's commitment to sustainability definitely follows that model of looking at ways to integrate the values of community, protection for the future of our planet, and the belief in developing an economic future for those communities. All right, so to start out with, I'm just going to give you a little background. Again, in my experience working in sustainability and working with schools, it really started in 2013 when I read a little bit about the partnership between ACTE and the National Coalition of Certification Centers and the summit that they held on building a sustainable energy workforce. There were a lot of key initiatives and resources developed from that summit, but a couple of the recommendations that really stuck out to me in my work in Arlington, I've listed here. The idea of creating a campaign. So creating a campaign can be as simple as working sustainability into a vision or a mission statement. And really, even if it's not part of the district or the school's mission or vision statement, creating one for a sustainability club or a recycling club, any kind of organization that you're going to work with to develop sustainability in the schools. Second was to develop a workforce need profile. And that really begins by talking with community members and sort of getting outside the building and maybe applying what would be considered a backwards design model, where you're looking at what the local economy needs as far as a trained and educated workforce, and then bringing that back to the school and looking at ways that you can prepare students for those employment needs. The quick ramp to new training and workforce programs follows kind of a career pathways models to quick start careers. So looking at opportunities for students to really develop entry-level skills and ways that they can then transfer those skills into the workplace. Realistic work environment really just, to me, means realistic goals. Goals that are realistic for students, but also schools and their community partners. And then that obviously transitions into being a willing partner. So not only establishing those partnerships, but being willing to work within different dynamics with industry and those community partners that have different timelines and different schedules and different approaches to learning maybe than we do sometimes in schools. So being flexible and being willing to be a partner to that. And finally, adopting and supporting certifications. I think that maybe just preaching to the choir, but certainly looking at what the certifications are that are most in demand and really adopting those as benchmarks or as goals for our students. And so we'll take a look here at some planning and curriculum resources. So I have the good fortune of being close to Washington, D.C. and close to the national headquarters of the U.S. Green Building Council. But honestly, my familiarity with USGBC started online, and I found that they have a great set of resources for educators through their Center for Green Schools. And as you'll see on the right-hand side of this slide here, this is a screen capture from their page. So they have a lot of really different resources and good resources for the whole K-12 and higher education spectrum of education. But the two that I wanted to just draw your attention to today are the Whole School Sustainability Framework and then secondly, Powering Down. So to start with, the Whole School Sustainability Framework is a partnership between USGBC and the Institute for the Built Environment at Colorado State. And it really looks at approaches to whole school sustainability efforts. So as I mentioned in my example of building a composting program and including several of our CTE programs, that is my attempt to build into our school a whole school sustainability approach. But I had to start with the programs where I had good relationships with individual teachers. But as anyone I think will attest, the more partners you have and the more allies you have within your school, the greater the impact of your sustainability efforts will be. So this is a great resource that I found to really thinking about how to develop those allies and develop those partnerships to really not just approach sustainability from one vantage point or from one perspective within your school, but to really try and incorporate all of the players, from students to teachers to administrators and support staff, to really building a culture of sustainability throughout your schools. And I'll talk a little bit more about that model. Actually, I have a slide on the next page just to sort of look a little bit more at that resource. But the other resource that I really liked that I used as part of my volunteer work with the DC Public Schools is the Powering Down resource. So this is a great toolkit, again, for behavior-based conservation, energy conservation. And it was what we used in DC to really work with teachers and janitorial staff, building staff in a a district-wide energy savings competition. So they have everything from suggestions to actual templates that you can use for switch plates as reminders to turn off the lights when you leave the room, or to shut down your computer, not just the monitor, but actually to shut down the computer over the weekend, and to unplug appliances that aren't being used over winter break or other holidays or weekends. So it's a really great resource in that it provides a lot of suggestions and guidance, but also some real hands-on content that you can use in your schools to get people thinking about, again, that behavior-based energy conservation. So the next slide here, just to jump back a little bit more about the whole school sustainability framework. So this goes back to that concept we were talking about with ACTE's commitment to sustainability and the people, planet, and profit. So if you look at the graphic here, you see sustainability at the center, which is hopefully our goal for our schools. And they break it down into physical place, educational programs, and organizational culture. And then within each of those three, you see other areas of focus. And without spending too much time on this, just to say that the resource on USGB's site, which is a freely downloadable resource, as are all of their resources on under the Center for Green Schools, you have really good information about each one of these ways. If we're looking under organizational culture, they talk about vision and mission alignment. So again, sort of talking about creating a campaign. So they really work with organizational concepts and how to best bring about all of the players within your school to really create that kind of school culture change towards creating a more sustainable school. Physical place, looking at not only what are healthy school systems, but also the efficiency and really looking at the physical plant. And then under educational programs, a way to connect things to creating champions in your school, creating a connection to place, and creating a connection to community, really, and then having all of these efforts and initiatives really being student-powered. So not being a top-down approach from administration and faculty, but really having students take a lot of ownership of these sustainability efforts and really having them be not only the power, but also the voice behind them. So just to talk a little bit more about the USGBC, or the U.S. Green Building Council Center for Green Schools. They are piloting, starting in August, so a few days from now, an online educational platform to offer K-12 schools one-stop access to educational resources that they're calling Sustainable Intelligence. And it will have not only cross-disciplinary connections and extensions, but it will also have translations in English and Spanish and cultural adaptations. So this is a new resource that they're piloting. I applied to be one of the teachers for this pilot, so I'm very excited to be taking part in that. Obviously, have not yet seen the curriculum or seen the resources, but my understanding is that the pilot will be over the next school year, and then subsequent to that, as resources are added, it will be widely available and free to the public. So this is something just to sort of keep on your radar and to look for as an opportunity to really connect with more high quality curriculum and resources for sustainability in the future. So two other resources that I've really found useful in working with my CTE teachers. One is the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. And I have some videos here that I don't think I can play right now, but I want to see if I can take you to the energy.gov website. So hopefully you can see that. You can see that website now. So this is a great resource, again, for K-12 teachers as well as university faculty and administrators in planning for clean energy careers. And they really have a lot of excellent lessons and activities planned that you can easily access and use with students. They also have a lot of great explanations about energy and about energy use, as well as energy generation and energy production, and standards that you can use to teach energy within different curriculum and different content areas. So what I want to show you, hopefully you can see this at the bottom of the page, they also have maps for careers, which I really have found to be a great opportunity, not only with teachers, but also with students, to sort of map and plan careers. So there are maps for careers in solar energy. There's also a map for careers in wind energy. And hopefully you can see those at the bottom of the page, but they're a really excellent resource to look at all of the career options for those fields. There's also a great TED video, so called A Guide to Energy, to the Energy of the Earth. And it talks about the 7 principles of energy in action, and it's a really excellent video resource explaining how energy and the 7 principles of energy work. So again, highly recommend this as a resource, lots of good information, and I'm not really going to do it justice here, but I highly recommend it if you have the time just to poke around that page a little more. The other resource here on this page you can see at the bottom is the New Jersey Green Program of Study. And so the project was started in 2009 in New Jersey. The New Jersey Regents applied for a Department of Education Technical Assistance Academy grant to develop a green program of study for career and technical education. And this is the product of that grant. They were able to develop 3 curricular resources, one on sustainable design, one on green construction, and a third on sustainable energy. And each one is grades 9 through 12. They have 4 different curriculum for each. And it's project-based learning, which I think, as we all know, in Career and Tech Ed is a great resource for our students. and it's all aligned to Common Core state standards, so whether you're in a Common Core state or not, it's a great resource just to connect to your state standards. So moving on. To the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Ed. So this is a great resource, again, freely available for download. And its focus is obviously in higher education, but I've really found it to be useful for me working in a high school career and tech ed program as well. So as I mentioned with our school compost project, we worked with interns in our greenhouse, and our interns were pulled from two different programs that are also housed in our school building. One is a program for students 18 to 21 who are special education students who have continued beyond their 4 years to focus on vocational and independent living skills. So we developed an internship program for those students as well as for some of our students in an alternative education setting who work with us on the food scrap collection from culinary arts to composting. And if anyone is familiar with composting, it's not as simple as dumping your scraps in a bin. So it requires some attention and monitoring to really make sure you're making the best use of that compost and of those food scraps. So they've been responsible for that, as well as then using the compost in the greenhouse to grow the herbs and the vegetables that we produce for our culinary arts program. So this is a great resource, as I said, for not only for planning for interns, but also in identifying students and recruiting those students, for implementing internships with your school staff and administration, supervising the interns, and also evaluating the effectiveness of intern programs. So again, an excellent resource, freely available to really help you get set up with using interns to build sustainability programs at your school. Next, I want to just talk briefly about facilities. So, as I mentioned before, I think that it's a great opportunity for facilities to really integrate with curriculum and instruction to use our buildings, and especially our green buildings, as teaching tools. I'm very fortunate in the county where I work to have, we have 3 comprehensive high schools, and each of those high schools is LEED certified. The building that our Career and Tech Ed Center is in is not, but we are slated for renovation sometime in the future, so there's hope that we will also be a LEED certified or green building at some time in the future. But I had the good fortune 2 years ago to attend through USGBC. Every year they run a School Sustainability Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C., which is another great opportunity to really network with people on the facilities and building maintenance side of green buildings, and to really have a conversation about working together with those folks in your district. I've found that sometimes those conversations don't happen as often as they should, that we work on the curriculum and instruction side, and that the building and facilities folks work on their side, and sometimes there isn't enough conversation between those two. But in order to really use our buildings as teaching tools, that needs to happen. So 2 resources that I highly recommend again. One is the Education Facilities Clearinghouse. They have a lot of great information on best practices for creating high-performing facilities from pre-K through higher ed, everything from design and planning to construction, operation and maintenance, procurement. They're housed out of the George Washington University, and again, this is a great freely available resource, so can't recommend it highly enough. They also have great technical assistance, so if you have questions specifically that you're not finding answers to, you can contact their technical assistance resources and usually have someone within a day or two respond to your inquiry and help direct you and point you in the right direction to those resources that'll help you with your issue. Another resource, the EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, they have an indoor air quality tools for schools action kit, which again can be requested at no cost. And it's really an opportunity for some citizen science with your students to measure the indoor air quality of your schools, classrooms, offices, and really look at the impact that air quality has on student learning and behaviors. And it's a good opportunity to really get, again, students involved, especially through the lens of science and public health. Next, I just want to take a minute here to talk about the U.S. Department of Ed's Green Ribbon Schools. This is something maybe you have heard of. It was launched in 2011, and it's an award program with 3 aspirational goals, so zero environmental footprint, positive impact on occupants, both their health and their performance, and that they have a sense of environmental literacy in the graduates from those schools. So this is in 2005, rather, there are 79 Green Ribbon schools, and they range from, again, elementary to post-secondary, and they are across the U.S. as well as 2 overseas Department of Defense schools have been awarded. So districts who are interested in applying for next year, well, you don't have very much time since the application deadline is August 1st. But it's a good resource to think about for the future. It's not something to enter into lightly, I'll say. I've looked into it for our school, and for one, you have to approach your State Department of Education because the nominations come from the state level. And usually your state will have some criteria that you have to meet in order to be eligible. And then the Green Ribbon Schools eligibility is also pretty extensive in terms of what you need to demonstrate. But again, I think they're good benchmarks, and I think they're good resources to look at to consider what's being done. Obviously, if there are 79 schools, almost 80 schools across the country who've done it, it is achievable. And it's a good benchmark to plan for in the future. 2 more initiatives at the federal level. One is the Green Strides webinar series. So these are, as you may have imagined, webinars that can help move you towards those pillars, those 3 pillars that the Green Ribbon Schools has set out as exemplars. So if you're interested in applying and you're looking for those resources and support to kind of move you along the continuum to being eligible to become a Green Ribbon School, these webinars are a great place to start. Another is the President's Environmental Youth Award, and actually can take you to that web page here as well. So hopefully you can see this this web page. But a lot of information about this is available on the website. Applicants are encouraged from all 50 states and territories to compete for a regional certificate of special recognition and a national presidential award. And the application is, let's see, I believe it's December 31st. So these are due obviously at the end of the calendar year. So there would still be time if you're considering, or if you have students who really have a passion for environmentalism and have demonstrated a real capacity for change within your school. This is a great opportunity for them and also for your school. So going back to the slides here, professional development. This is, again, something that I have had the opportunity to participate in, which I really had a positive experience with, was EE capacity, and that's the EPA, or again, the Environmental Protection Agency's National Environmental Education Training Program. So it's a partnership between the EPA and Cornell University's Civic Ecology Lab, as well as the North American Association for Environmental Education and some other government and nonprofit organizations. But it's a professional development opportunity for educators across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico that's primarily based online. And I participated in one of their courses. You can see at the bottom here some of the topics that they offer, but the one that I attended was urban environmental education and learning to work with environmental education with primarily urban students. And that was a great opportunity for me, I think, to really learn about some more cultural diversity issues within environmental education, to recruit those students from different backgrounds than myself, and to really talk about place-based learning and place-based education and respecting the cultural norms and differences that that you encounter in schools sometimes, and that may make it a challenge to identify best practices for creating sustainability when you have different frameworks that you and your students are coming from. So as you can see, there are a lot of other resources as far as looking at program evaluation, public gardens, climate change, and environmental education research. So these are all offered online. It's a good opportunity to really engage with people outside of your immediate community to learn what's being done in other parts of, again, U.S., Canada, and Mexico, as far as engaging learners in environmental issues and environmental concerns. They also have I'll mention they have a Facebook group, which is another good way to just sort of see some of the work that participants are doing as part of their experience with this professional development. So if you're at all curious to see what people are doing, that's another good way to just sort of check in on what's happening with some of the participants of this professional development. And then the final slide here is just, I guess, a little promo. I will be presenting in New Orleans at Vision 2015 on developing sustainability in your 21st century CTE program. So I'll be looking a little bit more at the competencies around sustainability and talking a little bit more about my experience in Arlington Public Schools in creating sustainability initiatives across our career and tech ed programs. So I want to thank you very much for your time, and look forward to seeing hopefully some of you in New Orleans. And if you have any questions about any of the resources I've talked about today, or other questions about my work in Arlington and with our compost program and other initiatives, please feel free to contact me. My email address is there for you. So I look forward to receiving any of your questions or comments. And again, thank you very much for your time. I'll turn it back over to you, Celia.